The sun bled orange across the Persian Gulf, turning the deck of the USS Abraham Lincoln into a skillet of shimmering steel. Petty Officer First Class Sarah Klein stood at parade rest, her boots planted like anchors, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the sky kissed the sea. She was the only woman in a line of 20 hardened sailors, and every man there knew she'd earned her spot twice over. But today, something was wrong. The air tasted of salt and dread. Captain Harlan Reed, a man whose voice could shatter glass, marched down the line with a clipboard in one hand and a storm in his eyes. He stopped in front of Sarah. "Klein," he barked, "remove your uniform." The words hit like a missile. Gasps rippled through the ranks. Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs, but she didn't flinch. She'd faced Taliban fire in Helmand, dragged a wounded Marine through a hail of bullets, earned a Bronze Star with a 5 for valor. And now this? If you're feeling that same fire in your chest, hit that subscribe button right now. Join the family, because this story's about to explode. Sarah's fingers trembled as they found the top button of her camouflage blouse. The fabric felt heavier than body armor. Around her, the crew stood frozen, their faces a gallery of shock and confusion. She peeled the blouse off, folding it with mechanical precision, the way she'd been taught since boot camp. Underneath, she wore the standard Navy t-shirt, but the act of stripping in front of her brothers in arms felt like flaying her soul. Reed's eyes never left her face, cold and unreadable. "The pants," he said. Sarah's jaw tightened. She unbuckled her belt, the clink of metal loud in the stunned silence. She stepped out of her trousers, standing in boots and underwear, the wind whipping her skin. Humiliation burned hotter than the desert sun she'd once patrolled. She was a SEAL, damn it. One of the first women to claw her way through buds, to ring that bell and keep going. And now she was being stripped of everything she'd fought for. Reed held out a plastic bag. "Everything goes in here." Sarah's medals clinked as she dropped them in. Her trident, her ribbons, her pride. The bag sealed with a zip that sounded like a coffin closing. She stood there, nearly naked, as the captain turned to the crew. "Petty Officer Klein is relieved of duty, effective immediately. She is to be escorted to the brig." 2 masters-at-arms stepped forward, their faces grim. Sarah didn't resist as they cuffed her wrists. The metal was cold, biting into her skin. As they led her away, she caught the eye of Chief Warrant Officer Daniels, her mentor, the man who'd taught her to breathe through a rebreather and never quit. His face was stone, but his eyes, God, his eyes were screaming. Down in the brig, the cell was a concrete box with a steel bench and a toilet that smelled of bleach and despair. Sarah sat, her knees pulled to her chest, the cuffs finally off but the weight still there. Hours bled into days. No charges raid, no explanation. Just the hum of the ship and the occasional clang of a hatch. She replayed every mission, every decision, searching for the mistake that had brought her here. Was it the raid in Yemen? The one where she'd disobeyed a direct order to save a squad of Marines pinned down by ISIS snipers? She'd taken a bullet in the thigh for it, but they'd all come home. Was that it? Or was it something older? Something that crawled out of the shadows of her past? On the 3rd night, the hatch creaked open. Daniels slipped inside, his boots silent on the deck. He was risking everything to be here. "Sarah," he whispered, sliding a folded note through the bars. "Read this. Burn it." She unfolded the paper with shaking hands, scrawled in Daniels' jagged handwriting. "They're saying you sold intel to the Iranians. It's a lie. Trust no one." Her blood turned to ice. Treason? The word was a death sentence. She'd never betray her country, her team, her oath. But someone wanted her buried. She burned the note with a lighter. Daniels slipped her, the flame curling the paper into ash. "Who's behind this?" she asked. Daniels's eyes darted to the hatch, higher than Reed, way higher. "Stay sharp, kid. I'm working on it." The next morning they moved her. Not to a court-martial, not to a hearing, just a blacked-out helicopter on the flight deck, rotors thundering like Judgment Day. Sarah was blindfolded, her hands zip-tied. The flight was endless, the chopper's vibrations rattling her teeth. When they landed, the air was colder, sharper. She smelled pine and damp earth, not the Gulf, somewhere stateside. The blindfold came off in a windowless room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. A man in a crisp suit sat across from her, his tie the color of blood. "Petty Officer Klein," he said. "Not a question. You've been a problem." Sarah's voice was steel. "I'm a lot of things, sir. A problem's not one of them." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos, her in a market in Sanaa, shaking hands with a man whose face was blurred. Another of her handing over a flash drive in a dark alley. Her stomach lurched. "These are fake," she said. The man smiled, thin and sharp. "Doesn't matter. They're enough." He leaned forward. "Sign this confession, and you disappear quietly. Refuse, and you'll wish you had." Sarah laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "I've stared down worse than you in a cave full of Taliban. Try again." The man's smile vanished. He stood, straightening his tie. "You'll break," he said, and left her in the dark. Weeks turned into a month. Interrogations, sleep deprivation, the kind of psychological warfare she'd trained to resist but never expected to face from her own side. They played her greatest hits, recordings of her voice, doctored to sound like she was selling out her team. They showed her videos of her parents' house, her little brother playing basketball in the driveway. The message was clear: sign or they pay. Sarah's body weakened, but her will was a blade, honed by years of hell. She started leaving marks on the wall, tiny scratches to count the days, to keep her mind from fracturing. She whispered the SEAL creed to herself in the dark: "I will never quit. I persevere and thrive on adversity." Then, one night, the lights went out. Not a flicker, total blackout. The door exploded inward, and shadows moved like ghosts. Sarah tensed, ready to fight with her fists if she had to. A gloved hand clamped over her mouth, and a voice hissed, "It's Daniels. Move." She was up, her bare feet silent on the concrete. They slipped through corridors, past guards who never saw them coming. Daniels had a team, 3 men, faces blackened, moving like they were born in the dark. They exfiltrated her through a service tunnel, into a van that screamed into the night. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked, her voice raw. Daniels didn't look at her. Somewhere they can't touch you. Yet, they hid her in a safe house in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a cabin that smelled of cedar and gun oil. Daniels laid it out. The conspiracy went deep. A defense contractor, Halberd Solutions, had been selling tech to Iran through back channels. Sarah's team had stumbled onto it during a raid, data on a laptop she'd pulled from a safe house. She'd turned it over to Reed, trusting the chain of command. Big mistake. Halberd had friends in the Pentagon, and they'd painted Sarah as the fall guy to cover their tracks. Reed was just a pawn, but a willing one. "They're not done," Daniels said. "They'll come for you, for all of us." Sarah's eyes burned with a fire that could light the night. "Then we hit them first." She spent weeks planning, her body healing, her mind sharpening. She reached out to old contacts, SEALs who'd retired, hackers who owed her favors, a journalist with a grudge against Halberd. They built a case, piece by damning piece. Bank records, encrypted emails, a video of Halberd's CEO bragging about managing liabilities at a black tie gala. Sarah's name was on a kill list, buried in a server in Reston, Virginia. She was going to war again, but this time the enemy wore suits. The night of the raid, the air was thick with rain. Sarah led the team, 4 operators, ghosts in the storm. They breached Halberd's data center, moving like shadows. Sarah plugged in a drive, her fingers flying as she downloaded the server's guts. Alarms screamed, but they were gone before security could blink. Back at the cabin, they uploaded everything to a journalist contact at the Washington Post. The story broke like a nuke. Defense giant implicated in treasonous tech sales, Navy SEAL framed to cover tracks. The internet erupted. Hashtags trended. Congress called for hearings. Halberd's stock tanked overnight. Sarah watched it all from a diner in nowhere, Virginia, a baseball cap pulled low. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniels. "It's time." She met him at Arlington, the graves stretching like silent sentinels. A car pulled up, and out stepped Captain Reed, his face gaunt, his uniform crisp but his eyes hollow. He stopped in front of her, his hand twitching like he wanted to salute but didn't know how. "Klein," he said, voice cracking. "I was wrong." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his cover, the one with the eagle gleaming. He dropped it at her feet, then snapped to attention. His salute was slow, deliberate, a man unmaking his shame. Sarah didn't move. The wind carried the sound of taps from a distant funeral. Reed's hand trembled, but he held the salute until Sarah gave a single nod. He picked up his hat, turned and walked away, a broken man. Sarah was reinstated with full honors. The Navy flew her back to the Lincoln, the same deck where she'd been stripped bare. The crew lined up, same as before, but this time their eyes held something else, respect fierce and unshakable. The new captain, a woman with a chest full of ribbons, pinned Sarah's trident back on her chest. The metal was warm, like it had never left. The crew erupted in cheers, a roar that shook the sky. Sarah stood tall, her uniform fitting like it was forged for her alone. She'd been to hell and dragged the truth back with her. She left the Navy a year later, not broken but whole. She started a foundation for whistleblowers, for the ones who saw the dark and refused to stay silent. Her story became legend, whispered in barracks and bars from San Diego to Norfolk. She never forgot the weight of that plastic bag, the cold of the cuffs, the fire of Reed's salute. It fueled her every damn day. And now, I want to hear from you. From which part of the country are you watching this video? Drop it in the comments. Let's see where this story's traveling.